What is the CSR policy? It relates to activities specified in Schedule 7. Schedule 7 to the Act specifies the CSR activities which a company may pursue under Section 135, and the expenditure is to be incurred on the same. It must include the following: the list of CSR projects or programs. CSR could be in the form of a project or it could be in the form of a program. So water sanitation could be a project, because once you achieve a project, it's over. But a program could be long duration and could be continuing. Preventive health care, that's a program because it goes on. You continuously need to do preventive health care. But drinking water project, once you achieve that, then only you need to take care that it continues to remain drinkable. Otherwise, there are several rural areas which don't have any access to drinking water. So that's one CSR project which you can undertake during the year falling within Schedule 7. Modalities of execution in areas and sectors chosen. Implementation schedule for the same. It's very important to have a time-bound implementation schedule, and that's what the policy must lay down. Monitoring process. How are you going to monitor such process, project and program, and specify that any surplus from CSR will not be profit of the company. So this is something which comes up again and again in both the accounting requirements as well as in the CSR policy rules, that any surplus you earn from CSR does not become your profit. So you can't make money out of charity. Charity begins at home, but you are not a beneficiary of it. The board must ensure that the CSR policy is related to activities included in Schedule 7. This is a very important statement. It looks very innocuous, but it has a very deep-rooted meaning. Ensure that the CSR policy is related to activities included in Schedule 7 means you cannot take any other activity other than the 10 activities specified in Schedule 7. There is no flexibility for the board to think of an 11th activity which is not there in Schedule 7. And in the next couple of slides, I'll show you how the minister all throughout was asking that there is a very flexible policy and the board has discretion to decide what it wants, but the reality in the rules is totally different from that. Now the question arises, what do I spend my CSR activity money on? Schedule 7 lays down the specified CSR activity, and the schedule states activities which may be included in the CSR policy. What does that may be means? You have a discretion, you can select others also. Are the activities mandatory or are they illustrative? Can I spend on activities which are not included in Schedule 7 but are yet corporate social responsibility activities? This is what the minister has said at ASSOCHAM, at FICCI and at CII. The board is to have discretion and the norms would be as open-ended as possible. As the company deems fit, it can spend. This is at a time when the CSR draft rules were only in place, the final rules were not in place. This is his statement, and quote unquote, I can't be more liberal than that. Companies can spend as they deem fit. If you look at the rules, nothing of this sort is contained in that. CSR definition in the rules, it means and includes but not limited to activities under Schedule 7 as per the CSR policy for activities as per the schedule. So means and includes but not limited to. So this does give flexibility and is in consonance with the statement given by the minister that you have flexibility to decide any other activity. Next subsection says CSR expenditure is defined to mean excludes expenditure on items not under Schedule 7. So first definition gives you power to decide what you want. Second says anything you spend on other than Schedule 7 is not CSR expenditure. CSR policy definition, which is in section Rule 21F, activities to be undertaken by company as specified in Schedule 7. So again, no discretion. And Rule 7, which is very important. Board of Directors must ensure that the CSR policy is in line with activities in Schedule 7. Is this liberal or restrictive? I leave it to you all to decide. I do not find it to be liberal by any stretch of imagination. It is entirely restrictive, saying that you are bound by Schedule 7 only and there is no discretion. I think it's time for a clarification from MCA again, removal of difficulties order. And again we'll have something coming out that this is not what we meant. We meant this and therefore you have discretion. But as the law stands today, there is no discretion according to me. Although CSR definition is wide, but when it says under Schedule 7 as per CSR policy. So that means you go to the definition of CSR policy, which says activities to be done as specified in Schedule 7, and CSR expenditure excludes anything other than under Schedule 7. Looks like it is restrictive. It does not give you the flexibility to go to an 11th activity which is not covered in Schedule 7, which is quite bad. Why should you restrict it only to these 10 activities? There could be other activities also.
The main thing is the requirement, the local requirement all over India may vary. So the company
I agree.
and local people are the best
Judge to decide. Yes.
People of that area.
I agree.
And the territory is not restricted to that area.
Exactly. Let us look at the activities which are there, the 10 activities. Now earlier, it's very interesting, the Schedule 7 was prescribed under the Act. So it was enacted by an Act of Parliament. The Ministry of Corporate Affairs has changed the schedule. This is again a classic example of delegated legislation overstepping its boundaries. When something is done by an Act of Parliament, the only way to amend it is to go back to Parliament. Ministry has no power to change it. It's like Parliament shot a bullet and Ministry wants to alter the course of it. Sorry, you can't do that. The only one who can alter it is the one who shot it. So you can't alter the schedule. These guys have gone and amended the schedule which was enacted under the Act. It was not under the rules, it was not notified by the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, it was part of the Act which was passed by the Parliament and approved by the President. And yet, sometime in February, the schedule itself has been amended, the entire schedule has undergone a change, and a lot of activities have gone away altogether and some have been modified. So what I have done is compared the new Schedule 7 with the old entry in the schedule, or the old entry in the old schedule, and given my remarks on whether it's a good move or a bad move.
Whether it can be challenged.
It can be, definitely. That's what I'm saying. It's a classic case of delegated legislation overstepping its boundaries. It can be and should be. Definitely be challenged. But the only forum would be to go to a high court by a writ petition. Eradicating hunger and poverty, malnutrition, promoting preventive health care and sanitation, and safe drinking water. So all these form part of one entry. The old schedule said eradicating extreme hunger and poverty. So the word extreme is done away with. Now you can eradicate even a lower element of hunger. Poverty remains. Malnutrition has been added, which is good because India suffers from a lot of malnutrition. Promoting preventive health care, that is a good move. And sanitation and safe drinking water. These are two areas where India is very deficient, sanitation and safe drinking water. So that's a good thing. Promoting preventive health care becomes important for pharma companies. If they go and distribute their medicines and medical equipment free of cost, it may be an indirect booster to their business, which is also permissible. And we look at a case of Rainbakshi doing a similar thing. So this is a good idea of including preventive health care along with other sanitation, water and other projects. Promotion of, now the next entry, promotion of education, special education, vocational skills amongst children, women, elderly, differently abled, promoting livelihood projects. Earlier it was more generic, now it's become more specific. Promotion of education and employment enhancing vocal skills. Now they're saying amongst children, women, elderly, differently abled. Only question arises that if I go to do it amongst men who are not differently abled, will it be CSR or no? I think it should be. It's only empowering you to empower women because women's empowerment is now a favorite word of the current government. So therefore it has been added afterwards. But otherwise, I believe if you go to do a vocational skill for a male, that should not be out of the CSR activity, although not covered amongst any of these special categories. Two activities have been now clubbed together. Education and IT companies can contribute a lot to these activities because they can carry out computer education programs. So you have a company like EduCom. So it could go and run a CSR activity for rural children for computer education. Or you could have an IT company like NIIT running some programs. So that is an example of CSR which they can do. Again, promoting gender equality, empowering women, setting up homes for women, orphans, old age homes, and measures to reduce income inequalities. Old schedule provided promoting gender equality, so that was same, empowering women, but the old age homes and orphans and measures to reduce income inequalities were not there. Contributing for homes for women, orphans, something which reality companies can look at as a CSR activity, so it becomes easier for them to carry out such construction and old age homes, and it could be treated as a CSR on their part. Something for the environment, ensuring environmental sustainability, and that was always there. They've added more specific items: welfare of ecological balance, flora and fauna, animals, agroforestry, natural resources, and quality of soil, water and air. Here it defines the same term more explicitly, otherwise if you look at it, the generic item was wide enough to cover all of these. This could be useful for hazardous and pharma companies and chemical companies who otherwise are polluting companies to look up something for environmental sustainability. New entry which was not there earlier, which is good move: protection of national heritage, art, culture, restoring buildings, historic sites, art, setting up of public libraries, promoting traditional arts and handicrafts. This was not there earlier, so they want you to, even if you look up something like restoration of Jahangir Art Gallery, so that could be a CSR initiative. Or promoting the Kalagoda festival, that's a traditional art and handicraft, so that could be a CSR initiative, and something which media and entertainment companies could use up more, because it also leads to indirect publicity. What companies should or could look at is that the CSR is in line with their profile, so it looks at something which also leads to brand building. So if you have a pharma company promoting an art and handicraft, although it is CSR, it does not that much give you mileage as a media company promoting art and handicraft. So it does give you a mileage also. So that is something which companies would now have to look at, how to weave in CSR with their corporate image, with their corporate branding, and then get some mileage in an indirect manner. Measures for the benefit of armed forces, veterans, poor widows and dependents. Very good move. There's very little done for the services in this country, service sector, that's the security forces. So this is something which has been covered. Defense industries, you may like to look at it. And this is an important one which was added, which I kind of fail to understand what it means. And this is something which all of us should consider. Training to promote rural sports, national sports and Olympic and Paralympic sports. Anything spending on sports is always welcome, because we are not a very sporting nation other than cricket. So we don't promote any other sport. But training to promote sports means what? You want marketing executives or you want sportsmen? So then you should say promoting sports, not training to promote sports. You don't train people to promote sports. We're not looking at creating medical representatives who go and promote sports, that kind of a thing. So training to promote does not have any meaning according to me. It should either mean spending on promoting sports. So if I sponsor a hockey tournament or I sponsor a volleyball tournament, that should be treated as CSR. Not training someone to promote the hockey, so then he goes and becomes a marketing executive. I don't think that is what is meant. That's what the wordings are used.
Maybe they are referring to training institute for sports.
But then they are not referring to any association like ATG says, an institution or an association set up for promoting sports. Why not just sponsor a sporting event? Why keep it very restrictive? So and they've nicely included rural sports, which are not currently getting the kind of attention. Now you have the Kabaddi League and all these coming up. Why can I not look at something of that sort also? Promoting a village tournament, that could be a CSR activity, but it only requires you to train them. So then only, associations may be covered within the purview of that. Good old contribution to Prime Minister's National Relief Fund or a fund set up by central government for development of SC/ST, minorities and women. So you just contribute to the Prime Minister's National Relief Fund and you are done with your CSR responsibility. We'll come to that after some time. The old schedule included the same, but included funds set up by state government. So now state government funds are not covered any longer. Now here is a nice story to it why this was not done. The Chhattisgarh government, the moment the CSR Act came out and the draft rules came out, issued a policy, not a suggestion, it was a policy. Anybody who sets up a mega or an industrial policy in Chhattisgarh and who gets a grant or special benefits from the Chhattisgarh government is compulsorily required to give a CSR to a state government fund set up for that, And the CSR limits were even higher. 3% of net profit if your profit is less than 500 crores, 2% of net profit if your profit is more than 500 crores. You cannot carry out CSR in any other manner otherwise than to contributing through the Chhattisgarh government fund. And they issued a rider that if you don't, all policy benefits and grants will be withdrawn. So this was obviously not what was in mind. And the central government, MCA, even wrote to the Chhattisgarh government. It took a law ministry's opinion, and it was thought that this is not correct. We want people to develop CSR capabilities and not forcibly pay only to a state government. Hence, in the schedule which is now amendment, the state government fund has been taken away. So now this policy from the government of Chhattisgarh needs to be seen whether they would revoke it or they would yet continue and say you pay separately under the Companies Act and separately here. So that's something which we need to look at how they would act on that. Contribution to technology incubators in central government approved academic institutes. So if IIT or any technology institute were to set up an incubator fund, which is very common in the universities abroad. So you have Harvard incubator funds and you have Stanford incubator funds. Similar funds in institutes which will be notified by the central government if you contribute to, that would be a CSR. And the last is rural development projects. Good move because rural development is what is needed. So any rural development project would be treated as a CSR activity. What is removed? This is the shocker. We had an entry in the old schedule reducing child mortality. According to UNICEF, which is a UN authority, India has #1 status in child mortality. Our government thinks we have achieved 0 child mortality. Our child mortality rate is higher than the next 4 countries put together. In such a scenario, what was earlier treated as CSR is now not treated as CSR. And now the rules say that anything other than the 10 we looked at is not CSR. That means if I want to spend on reducing child mortality, if I am a pharma company or a healthcare company in this business and I want to spend on this, I am not allowed to spend. It doesn't make any sense. Combating HIV, AIDS, malaria and other diseases. This was a CSR activity under the old schedule, removed from the new schedule. India is the disease capital of the world. We are #3 in AIDS and HIV, #1 in malaria in Southeast Asia, #1 in heart and lung disease internationally. What is our government thinking, that we are a zero disease capital? Are we a Scandinavian country where we don't have any malaria or we don't have any heart disease, and yet not to allow companies to contribute to these activities makes absolutely no sense. So this is something which urgently either make the policy flexible and allow us to do anything we want, or include all of this, because this is something which is the need of the hour. Preventive healthcare, yes, but combating, no. So if I prevent it, it's okay, but if I treat you, it's not. And more often than not, it's a case of treatment, because in the rural area, etc., it's already too widespread. Social business projects was considered to be the #1 route for CSR by which companies were going to carry out their activities. And we'll look at a separate slide on that, and such other matters as may be prescribed, which has now been taken away. So now no more prescription, this is it. Combating diseases has been taken away, and you will be interested to know that when the schedule came out, immediately a writ petition has been filed in the Delhi High Court by a minor, Mohammed versus Union of India, challenging the fact that combating disease has been taken away. This person suffers from a very serious kind of unique disease, which is very high in treatment. And he said a lot of pharma companies were interested in treating patients like him by giving free medical aid, etc. Now they will not be able to do. His monthly expenditure is in the range of 7 to 10 lakhs. And now he will not be able to incur such expenditure. He's a very poor person. So he said the pharma companies will also think twice, because it's not CSR any longer. Why did the government take out combating diseases from the purview of the CSR schedule? And the Delhi High Court has made the Ministry of Corporate Affairs a petitioner to it. The last hearing was there yesterday, where the matter has yet been adjourned, and the Bar Association of Delhi has contributed some funds for his treatment, but MCA has yet not replied on why they have removed it. So this is a case which should be monitored quite clearly. It's a minor Mohammed versus Union of India, Delhi High Court. and it will be interesting whether the Delhi High Court strikes down the schedule saying it is ultra virus the acts, because the original schedule provided and you have deleted it, which is a case of delegated legislation. So what you are asking has already been challenged in the court of the Delhi High Court. Same, I believe, would be the case with social business projects. Now, this was the heart of CSR, and if you look at the microfinance revolution, it is nothing but a social business project. What do you mean by a social business project? It is a for-profit business model. So there, generally, charity is considered not for profit. Here they want to do profit, but it is owned by the poor and the needy. So the profit goes to those who need it, not to those who are in need. So it leads to income distribution, inequality reduction, and that is how this microfinance revolution took up in the first place. Now it has become a very dirty word, but earlier MFI, the whole idea was set up a for-profit social business project where the poor get the money, poor are distributed the dividend, and that leads to reduction in income inequality. That is what CSR was supposed to be also. That is now being done away with by the new schedule. Again, I believe would be challenged in a court of law, because this is something which a lot of companies were looking at doing their CSR through. But this is still we hear a writ petition on this. We don't have it in the current schedule. Which activities are excluded? Activities abroad. Charity begins at home and ends at home. You can't go out of India and do any charity. Those which benefit only employees and their family. They can also benefit, but they cannot only benefit. So do not mix charity and commerce. It must be have a separate, clear-cut boundary. Amount paid directly or indirectly to a political party. All political parties are considered to be uncharitable, and therefore no charity to them. It's a good move. Otherwise, we could have had directly or indirectly. Now it depends on how many levels they would look at, etc. Activities in the normal course of business of the company. Be charitable and indulge to everyone other than thyself. This is one of the statements of the Bible. So, what they are saying is don't do charity to yourself. So you cannot be something in your normal course of activity. But it can indirectly benefit you. I'll give you an example. Hindustan Lever has launched a campaign for washing hands. You will see a lot of ads, that wash your hands before eating, wash your hands and create sanitation, etc. Now this indirectly promotes hand wash, this indirectly promotes soaps, which Hindustan Lever is the leader in selling. That is okay. But it cannot say that, Hindustan Lever soaps only you buy or this only you do. So you need to be subtle in your CSR. You have to work out a middle of path approach. Some indirect mileage is okay. It could indirectly benefit you, but it should not be only benefiting you. Yeah.
So in the earlier slide, there is an example of a realty company constructing old age home, which would be covered in the CSR. Say a realty company comes out with a scheme where a slot of the flats constructed in a society are given at a concessional rate to the elders. Do you think it would be hit by this law?
I think it would, but it would yet benefit yourself. If you give it free, then it's okay. See, the Maharashtra government is now forcing you to do CSR in real estate companies. They say if a plot size above certain sector, 20% must be reserved for affordable housing. Now that 20%, if you want to give it free, then it is CSR. So state government is empowering you to do CSR in a way.
But that is not free.
That is not free, but if you give it free, then it is CSR.
In case of pharma company, if some company is giving medicines at discount, whether it will be considered as CSR activity?
No, because they remove combating disease unless it is preventive healthcare. So if you give vitamins at a discount, then it is preventive healthcare.
Any vaccines or like that?
No, but that is not preventive. Say children's vaccines, which are preventive in nature, that would be CSR. But for adult vaccines, which are not preventive, but which are as a treatment, that would not be, because they removed the clause for which the case is before the Delhi High Court. So what combating disease, that was a very important clause for pharma companies, that you give vaccines, you give medicines, you give implements, you give stents. A lot of Johnson & Johnson gives a lot of stents for angioplasty as free, that is CSR. Now that would not be covered, because that's not preventive. You can't go and get an angioplasty as preventive.
Giving at a discount, it is fine. Should it be given only free or?
Well, it is benefiting you if you give it at a discount. The same analogy what he asked about the house. It's the same thing. So I think only if it is free would it be CSR, because then you are benefited at least to the element of the amount which you get. So free, see, charity means free. You don't get any benefit out of it. Where do I spend it? Answer is only in India. Even if you have operations internationally, you cannot spend it internationally. So Bharti Airtel may have a large presence in Africa. And Africa may need more CSR than India, but you cannot spend in Africa. It has to be spent in India only. Preference is to be given to local area and areas around which the company operates. What does this mean? Does it mean local area of company's registered office, or each of the operational units of a multi-locational company? So I am a company like HLL again, which is spread all over India, but my headquarters are in Mumbai. Do I give preference only in Mumbai area, or do I go each operational unit? I believe each operational unit should be given the flexibility, because obviously, and if you are headquartered in Mumbai, in Nariman Point, that is not where you can need CSR so much, whereas if you are operating in a rural area in eastern India, that is where you may need actual CSR. So it should be each location and there give preference to local areas. That's how I would look at it. But again, nothing expressly for or against. How much to spend? That was my first slide question. 2%. Minimum 2%. It's not maximum. CSR spending currently 2%. And they may again come out with an amendment and make it more. CSR spending at 2% of average net profit of company in preceding 3 financial years. So the question which somebody was asking, preceding 3 financial years. Even if no profits in current year, this was also a question that somebody asked. So even if you are a loss-making company, if your average net profit of the preceding 3 financial years is a positive figure, you yet continue to spend. For 14-15, your block is from 11 to 13, 11, 12, 12, 13 and 13, 14. Manner of computing average net profit is specified here to mean net profit before tax. Here they have specified it. When we went to the threshold in the first few slides, I said I don't know the answer. Here it is expressly specified as net profit before tax, but in thresholds no specification. If I made a shortfall last year, do I need to make it good this year? If yes, then do I need to make a provision for that last year? There's no clarity, and I don't believe you need to make good last year's shortfall this year, because the law does not require you to do that. It's not a continuous that you need. Every year is separate, and therefore I believe each year on its own. How do you compute average net profit? This manner of clarity is not given when we look at net profit for the thresholds. When we look at the 1/3 conditions, they have not specified this should be followed. Only for computing average net profit, they have given the detailed methodology. You start with net profit before tax, deduct and exclude the following: any foreign branches profit, share premium or profit on forfeited shares, capital gain from the sale of undertakings. So if it is an undertaking and you made a capital gain, then it is to be excluded. But if it is not an undertaking and you made a capital gain, then it is not to be excluded. Gain from the sale of immovable property, fixed assets, except if held as stock in trade. So if a developer starts excluding immovable property sale, there will be nothing left. So other than developers, any immovable property, fixed assets sold, that is to be excluded. Profit on measurement of asset at fair value. So assuming fair value accounting were to come in this country, then you don't need to count that for CSR computation, thankfully. Working charges, directors' remuneration, bonus or commission paid to any employee. Dividend from a company also covered by CSR. Interest on debentures issued. Interest on mortgages created or loans created. Depreciation and bad debts. Excess of expense over income to the extent not set off in the past. And damages payable for breach of contracts. All these are to be excluded while computing the profit for the 2% condition. So while you are computing average net profit, in each year, reduce these and then arrive at your profit. Add the 3 years, divide it by 3, you will get your average figure. On that, pay 2%.